because I've actually heard, I haven't experienced it as far as any smoking addiction, but would you find that it was hard to turn around from that, and just from that beginning phase, like you just had those urges and like, I want to go back, even though you were fighting the spiritual part, that you knew that you were doing something that wasn't pleasing to the will of God? How did you feel? How was that fight?
Well, the fight at first was very, very difficult. I mean, it's one thing to make a decision in your mind, and it's another thing entirely to walk that out. And while we made that decision based on us feeling that God was really telling us, no, this is not what I have for you, we were essentially married. Our feelings for each other hadn't changed. We still loved each other. In fact, we still owned the house and the property together. So that initial break was within our own home. We had to separate, into two different rooms into our home. And that first days it felt like death. The death of a relationship. I imagine people that have been divorced or broken relationships with someone that they love, and they're not the one that wanted to break up. So neither one of us wanted to break this up. So God is the one that had us break up. And we had to unravel all of our lives, essentially our whole social community, our friendships, even the people at church. It was with Deb and Barb, not individuals. So we had a lot to navigate, and it took a lot of work. It took a lot of commitment and dedication. So it was really a rough time. And actually, during this time, I was journaling the whole time. I was always have written in diaries ever since I was a little girl. And so I was writing my feelings out and what I was experiencing through this entire process in my journal as I was wrestling with God and, having these highs and these lows in my emotions and the relationship with Barb and I. We had to figure out what's a new normal for us. A lot of people ask me, are you and Barb still friends? Well, yes, we are very much friends. In fact, she and I talk, maybe once a month regularly. She lives near my mom in West Virginia right now. So we stay in touch, and we're still friends. We're deep friends, and we will be for the rest of our lives, for everything that we've experienced together. But we had to figure out what's a new normal for us. Even going to church was weird. We had just made this public declaration that God had convinced us that we were not living according to His will. So the next Sunday at church, it's like, can we hug each other at the greeting like everybody else does, or will people think, oh, something's still going on with them? So there was all of that weirdness to navigate. And in fact, Barb eventually moved out of the house. I maintained the property in the house for a while, and then I sold it and moved from West Virginia to the DC region. I moved closer into where I worked. So there was a lot to navigate. And we also had, one thing that we did during that time was we wrote a letter to all of our family and friends. And we wanted them to know, we've made this decision based on what we believe that God is telling us. And we wanted them to know that a lot of things were going to change because, everybody knew us as Deb and Barb in our families and in the community. And we wanted them to know what Jesus had done for us and how exciting it was for us, but yet at the same time, things were about to change. And we lost a lot of friends. A lot of people didn't want anything to do with us anymore, especially those in the gay community, because if the gay community is trying to convince the world that we can't change because we're born this way, then somebody who defects from the community is not welcome.
That's the next question, though, because I was going to ask you, what is, especially because it is a tight-knit community,
yes,
and especially now, I've actually experienced that some in the gay community get very aggressive to others that choose to
live a different way.
I've actually seen that.
Yeah.
Being as though I'm in the beauty industry, I have a lot of gay friends and what have you, but I've actually seen that, and they've actually told me the same thing as well.
Yeah.
How is the pressure for you to, even to explain to others that's even thinking about withdrawing from the lifestyle, how is that pressure though on you to do that?
It can be difficult. I get accused of a lot of things. I get accused of never having been gay in the first place. And I'm like, okay, so I was playing around for 18 years of my life, so I was not really gay. People don't, so they want to attack or they just want to ignore you. But I would say that people who have walked away from the lifestyle of homosexuality are a minority that is under a lot of oppression. I mean, we see laws being passed all over the country to even prohibit counselors from helping young people who are struggling with their sexuality and want to know what the truth is, unless those counselors affirm their decisions to go into a homosexual lifestyle or change their gender or whatever. Unless they're affirming of that, they can actually lose their license, which is crazy. So there's all kinds of things happening in the laws across the country to say that I don't exist, that my experience is not real. But all I do is hold on to the truth. I know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, my life and everything that I experienced. I know that I fully embraced, fully lived, fully felt like I was gay, and that I was born that way. I convinced myself from everything from my childhood, playing softball, all the typical things that you would think of maybe a lesbian, to where I am today. And I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that God has completely healed me. He has delivered me. He has given me healing for the deep wounds that caused me to embrace that lifestyle in the first place. So people can say what they want, but I know what the truth is.
It's really, when I hear these stories, and I think yours is very unique. We've been friends, since 06 or
About
something?
10 years.
Yeah,
10,
so
years.
I always find your situation, and I've seen you grow so much, and I've really been fascinated from your growth and just hearing your stories. And I thought that this would be something that people need to know, because I've actually known one of my cousins, he was gay and he killed himself. And I remember talking to him before that happened, that the pressure, because he wanted to change so bad, but he just felt like it was being so much pressure that even in the gay community, saying basically what you just said, that you really weren't gay, or you this and that, why you want to change, you turning your back on the community, embrace yourself. But he felt like he wanted the change, he wanted change. Yeah. So when he killed himself, that was really tough. And I've known others that have done the same. So what I'm saying to you, if you're speaking into the young people, what would you say early on? What would be some of your advice to them, to, that they having these feelings, but they're afraid to express about changing their lifestyle? What would you say? What would be some suggestions?
One of the things so now I minister to other people who have unwanted same-sex attraction. I have a ministry at my church, at First Baptist Church of Glen Arden, called All Things New, where we actually go through a process similar to the process that God took me through. But the thing that I would say to people that really want to make a change in their life, and this is for anything. This doesn't necessarily have to be same-sex attraction. It could be someone addicted to alcohol. It could be someone addicted to drugs. It could be someone addicted to pornography. The only way that you're going to make a change in your life, from my experience, is that you must surrender completely your will and surrender everything. Makes no sense, but you surrender to the Lordship of Jesus Christ. Jesus died. God sent him to earth to die for our sins. And all of these addictions, all of these things that are contrary to God's will is sin. And he was sent to die for our sins. And when we believe that by faith and we put our trust and faith in him, he is the only one that can bring change and healing and deliverance to our lives. If we focus on the problem, if I continually focus on homosexuality as this big struggle in my life, it makes it bigger and bigger and bigger. Whatever you focus on becomes the big thing in your life. The trick is surrender. Like I said, it doesn't make sense, but it works. It's to stop focusing on that. Focus on the good things. Focus on the healing. Focus on what Jesus has done for us. and surrender those thoughts and those feelings. And I'm telling you, when I made that decision to walk away from homosexuality, those physical feelings will eventually fade, because what you focus on is what stays real in your life. This is what keeps people going back to pornography, is trying to get that high over and over and over again. And the more you go after it, the bigger it becomes, and the less able you're to satisfy those desires.
And do you think that people are addicted to the familiarity of that feeling?
I think so.
I mean, it's like a drug, you're saying.
Yeah, you get caught up in that life, and these are my people, and they understand me, and these are, it's you get addicted to the lifestyle, you get addicted to the people that you're in relationship with, and you can't even imagine yourself in a relationship with someone of the opposite sex. And because of my hurt that I experienced with men back in the day in college, I had no desire to be around men, and I could never imagine being with a man. But the thing is, with overcoming homosexuality, it's not necessarily, if the end goal for you is to think you're going to be 180 degrees out, if today I'm a homosexual and tomorrow I'm a heterosexual, that's not necessarily how this works. How it works is you surrender to the Lordship of Jesus Christ and allow Him to bring healing, and He will start to change your desires back in line with His will. I can tell you now, I have desire only for men. I no longer am attracted to women. And, that's my experience. So, and it came through surrendering those feelings and not focusing on them.
Now, in the ministry at your church, First Baptist of Glen Arden, I know the lead pastor there is Pastor John Jenkins. Am I correct?
Yes.
It's not senior, is it John Jenkins Senior?
Yes, it is senior.
John, that's what I thought. John Jenkins Senior. At the church, do you lead a ministry, or?
Yes, it's called All Things New.
All Things New.
And it's a discipleship ministry for healing. We meet on Wednesday nights, and we go through a process.
What are the age ranges?
Anywhere from 18 to however old you are.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, do you find that that people really are struggling and battling with that desire?
The people that come to the ministry are seeking help because they are conflicted about their feelings of sexuality and the way that they're living their life. For whatever reason, they're coming to us for help. They're looking for some assistance.
And are some of them afraid to share that?
Sure. Yeah.
Even in the ministry, they still?
Well, coming to the ministry is difficult because, you got to face the fact that there's a struggle in you that you want help with, and it's always hard to go to look for help. And then people are afraid that this is only my struggle and nobody else knows this, which is interesting because once we start sharing with each other about our struggles, then people are like, oh, I'm not the only one. And that is when the healing begins, when they're able to begin sharing. And honestly, as I went back in January 2006, when I first went to the women's group, Barb and I both, and we said, we are living outside of God's will, and we want you to help hold us accountable. We want to live right now. Once we got that out in the open and I began to share my testimony, share my story with other people, it begins a healing process because I'm no longer hiding this thing about me. And I think that's the same thing for anybody that's looking for healing in different areas of their lives. You have to share that with someone else. You have to share the things that have happened to you and talk through it and work through it. That's when you get the healing.
Wow. Now, I have a couple more questions before we end this segment. Do you find that with the lesbian lifestyle, I'm just focusing on the females, right, on this question. Do you find that it's more that something that happened more in their past, just based on your ministry? Because I know that your ministry as well, I'm going to throw this out there, that you travel and you speak to others. And so what I want to lead to the question of saying is, do you find the consistency of most people that struggle with being a lesbian throughout basically the world of where you have visited the same? Or is it something that is saying that it's a lifestyle? You understand what I'm saying? Is it kosher as a lifestyle, saying it's cool to be gay and being a lesbian, or a lot of times it's something happened in their past? What are you that triggered that?
It's kind of a combination of both. So a lot of people that become lesbians have experienced some kind of broken relationship. The research shows, and different people that I've talked to have shown that a lot of times it's a relationship break between a mother and a daughter. It can be a lot of different things. And sometimes heterosexual women that get into an emotional bond with another woman, whether they're sharing a little too deeply about their marriage problems or something like that, this emotional tie can sometimes then cross the line to a physical relationship. So that is a dangerous thing too, because again, those emotional ties can be very, very deep, especially with women. Women are much more open with each other about those kinds of feelings and things. And like I said, sometimes that can cross a line and become physical. So it just really varies based on the person.
Wow. I tell you, your story is really unique, and I'm thankful for that you are sharing this with us. And where can people find your book?
So I have written several books. I have the book that I wrote that is, again, my journal entries. This was something that I thought was going to be private. You write in your journal, you don't expect the world to see it. But when I began sharing my testimony, I came here to DC, Maryland area and started attending First Baptist Church of Glen Arden, and I started sharing my testimony there. And then God showed me that I should write this book so that people could see. I do a lot of training with pastors and churches and ministry leaders to help them to see how to love people like me that were coming to the church as a lesbian couple, how to love people like that unconditionally so that they can get to know Jesus, because again, it's Him that causes the change and the healing in a person's life. But I was impressed upon by God to write this book. So I took my journal entries during about a 5-year period of going through this entire process and published it. And so it's called All Things New, A Former Lesbian's Lifelong Search for Love. That book was published, I believe it was 2012. And then when I started the ministry at First Baptist, I wrote a discipleship program. So there's 3 workbooks and a facilitator guide. And that's called All Things New, a discipleship ministry for healing. And it's basically the curriculum that we use in the ministry. And more recently, this past year, I wrote a book called, All Things New, a discipleship ministry for life transformation. And then just recently, just this week, finished a book, which is a 31-day devotional called Life Transformation Day by Day. All of these resources are available on my website at dbarrministries.org. That's D-B-A-R-R ministries.org. And I have a second website, allthingsnewlifetransformation.org. So that's where you can purchase these books.
And do you do any counseling outside of there, or outside of that, one-on-one, if somebody was interested?
I don't do counseling per se. I am a minister. I'm a licensed ordained minister. Mm-hmm. And so I talk to people, if they approach me. My contact information is on my website. So if someone's seeking help and they're in a different part of the country and or even a different part of the world, and they want access to resources like my ministry, I can certainly help get them connected, because I'm part of a bigger network of ministries called Restored Hope Network. I'm on the board of directors for that organization. And so we have ministries all over the country that we can help get people connected with who are seeking help. And if you're in the DC, Maryland area, reach out to me and I can give you more information about our ministry at the church if that is a good fit for you.
Wow. Hey, I want to say thank you again for sharing your story and sharing it with us. And especially in the climate that we're in right now, mm-hmm. with the push of homosexuality, and even, we're doing enough. But I just want to thank you again for sharing. And, again, we're here with the author of All Things New, Debora Barr. And I want to thank you and we are signing out. Thank you again, Deborah.
Thank you.